You are approaching a green traffic light and traffic is blocking the intersection. What is the best thing to do? A. Partially enter the intersection to establish your right-of-way. B. Don't enter the intersection until you can get completely across. C. Continue into the intersection and wait for traffic to clear. B. Don't enter the intersection until you can get completely across. Even if your light is green, you must not enter an intersection unless you can get completely through the intersection before the light turns red. If you block the intersection, you can be cited. If you are turning onto a street with more than one lane traveling in your direction, you should A. Turn into the lane closest to your previous lane. B. Turn into the lane marked with an arrow. C. Turn into the middle lane. D. Turn into any lane. A. Turn into the lane closest to your previous lane. When turning onto a street with more than one lane moving in the direction that you are traveling, turn into the lane that is closest to your previous lane. Do not change lanes when turning. Slowing down just to look at collisions or anything else out of the ordinary. A. Causes traffic congestion. B. Prevents rear-end collisions. C. Improves traffic flow by preventing collisions. A. Causes traffic congestion. Avoid rubbernecking, or slowing down to look at collisions or anything else out of the ordinary. This helps to relieve traffic congestion. You may not park within. Fill in the blank. Of a crosswalk. A. 20 feet. B. 30 feet. C. 40 feet. D. 50 feet. A. 20 feet. Drivers may not park within 20 feet of a crosswalk at an intersection. Only park where you will not be disruptive to traffic and where other drivers can clearly see your vehicle from every direction.
Want to ace your DMV test? Click on the link below and get your guaranteed cheat sheet.
Emotions do not affect the way we drive. A. True. B. False. B. False. Strong emotions, such as fear and anger, can affect the way we perceive and process information. Therefore, emotions often affect the way we drive. This sign means A. Slippery when tow-away B. Tow-away zone. C. Steep downgrade. D. Roadwork ahead. A. Slippery when wet. Warning signs prepare drivers for upcoming road conditions and hazards and are usually yellow with black markings. This sign tells drivers to be cautious when driving under conditions that may cause the roadway to become wet and slippery. Who is required to wear a seat belt while in a moving vehicle? A. Only the driver. B. Only adult passengers. C. Only child passengers. D. All of the vehicle's occupants. D. All of the vehicle's occupants. Rhode Island's seat belt law requires passengers and drivers of all ages to be securely fastened into a seat belt while in a moving vehicle. Some children may require additional restraints. Driving is a privilege, not a right. A. True. B. False. A. True. Driving a motor vehicle is a privilege and not a right. Holding a license to drive carries a serious responsibility to keep yourself and others safe. Look over your shoulder to check your blind spot when A. Pulling toward or away from a curb. B. Turning left or right. C. Changing lanes. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. Look over your shoulder to check your blind spot every time you want to change your vehicle's position. If you are turning, changing lanes, or pulling toward or away from a curb, you should check your blind spots. This sign means A. You can travel in either direction in this lane. B. There is two-way traffic. C. You are approaching a divided highway. B. There is two-way traffic. This sign warns of two-way traffic. When driving in bad weather, drivers should A. Increase their speed to reach their final destination more quickly. B. Decrease their following distance. C. Increase their following distance. D. None of the above. C. Increase their following distance. When driving on wet roads, drivers should increase their following distance. If you see orange construction signs and cones on a freeway, you must A. Slow down because the lane ends ahead. B. Be prepared for workers and equipment ahead. C. Change lanes and maintain your current speed. B. Be prepared for workers and equipment ahead. As you enter a work zone, signs and message boards will warn you of workers, slow-moving equipment, and/or closed lanes ahead. You should reduce your speed and be prepared to slow down or stop. What does this road sign mean? A. Falling rocks. B. Trucks use second gear. C. Steep hill. C. Steep hill. Warning signs are usually yellow with black markings. This sign indicates that you are approaching a steep hill. Slow down and be ready to shift to a lower gear to control your speed and protect your brakes from damage. The amount of space you need to cross traffic depends on the A. Road conditions, weather conditions, and oncoming traffic. B. Presence of a stop sign. C. Use of your turn signals. D. Cars behind you. A. Road conditions, weather conditions, and oncoming traffic. The amount of space you need to cross traffic depends on the road conditions, weather conditions, and oncoming traffic. This white sign means you should not pass other vehicles. A. Until after you pass the sign. B. Unless it seems safe to do so. C. For any reason. C. For any reason. A white rectangular sign indicates that you must obey the stated rule. This sign means that drivers should not pass other vehicles for any reason. If someone has consumed alcoholic drinks, what will help the person overcome the influence of those drinks? A. Tomato juice and lime. B. Hot coffee. C. Fresh air. D. Only time. D. Only time. Only the passage of time will allow a person to overcome the influence of alcohol. Which of the following is true about driving on a wet roadway? A. As you drive faster, your tires become less effective. B. Water does not affect cars with good tires. C. Deep water is less dangerous than shallow water. D. As you decrease your speed, the roadway becomes more slippery. A. As you drive faster, your tires become less effective. The faster you drive on a wet roadway, the less effective your tires will be at wiping the water from the road. If your speed becomes excessive enough, your tires will lose their grip on the road entirely and you will begin to hydroplane, that is, to slide down the road on a film of water. You may not cross a single broken white or yellow line. A. When doing so would interfere with traffic. B. When turning left into a driveway. C. When the car in front of you is disabled. D. When passing to the right on a one-way street. A. When doing so would interfere with traffic. You may cross a single broken line to pass or change lanes as long as you can do so safely and without interfering with traffic. Fill in the blank. Limit your concentration, perception, judgment, and memory. A. Only a blood alcohol level greater than the legal limit can. B. Alcohol does not. C. Even the smallest amount of alcohol can. D. Only a blood alcohol level greater than 0.05% can. C. Even the smallest amount of alcohol can. Even the smallest amount of alcohol will reduce your concentration, perception, judgment and memory, and your driving skills will suffer. No one can drink and drive safely. When you drive through a construction zone, you should A. Stop to watch the workers. B. Decrease your following distance. C. Pass the construction zone carefully and not rubberneck. C. Pass the construction zone carefully and not rubberneck. To avoid contributing to chronic traffic congestion, you should not rubberneck. That is, you should not slow down to look at out of the ordinary things. If you come to an intersection and your view to the side is blocked, you should A. Slow down and look both ways. B. Maintain your speed and look both ways. C. Stop, then inch forward until you can see clearly in both directions. C. Stop, then inch forward until you can see clearly in both directions. Drivers must slow down when approaching an intersection. If a clear view of cross traffic is obscured, a driver should come to a stop and inch forward until they can see clearly in both directions. Roads become very slippery? A. When it has been raining for an hour or more. B. The day after it rains. C. For the first 10 to 15 minutes of a rainstorm. D. Right after the rain has stopped. C. For the first 10 to 15 minutes of a rainstorm. Pavement can become very slippery within the first 10 to 15 minutes of a rainstorm because the rain causes oil in the asphalt to rise to the surface of the road. This problem becomes even worse in hot weather. The heat combined with the water causes more oil to rise to the road surface. Drivers must yield to a pedestrian? A. Even if the pedestrian crosses the street carelessly. B. Only when the pedestrian is in a crosswalk. C. Only if the pedestrian is on the same side of the road as the driver. D. If the pedestrian uses a hand signal to ask oncoming drivers to stop. A. Even if the pedestrian crosses the street carelessly. Drivers must always yield to pedestrians in the street, even if they are crossing against a red light or are otherwise being careless. You are driving on the freeway. The vehicle in front of you is a large truck. You should drive A. closely behind the truck in bad weather because the driver can see farther ahead than you can. B. Farther behind the truck than you would when following a passenger vehicle. C. No more than one car length behind the truck so the driver can see you. B. Farther behind the truck than you would when following a passenger vehicle. When you follow so closely behind a truck that you cannot see the truck driver's side view mirrors, the trucker cannot see you and has no way of knowing you are there. Tailgating a truck, or any vehicle, is dangerous because you take away your own cushion of safety if the vehicle in front of you stops quickly. This road sign means A. Bicycle crossing. B. Stop only if other cars are approaching. C. Yield the right of way to pedestrians. A. Bicycle crossing. Warning signs are usually yellow with black markings. These signs alert drivers to areas where bicycles may be crossing. You are driving along a street and hear a siren. You cannot immediately see the emergency vehicle. You should A. Keep driving until you see the vehicle. B. Pull to the curb and look to see if it is on your street. C. Slow down. Don't stop until you see it. D. Speed up and turn at the next intersection. B. Pull to the curb and look to see if it is on your street. If you hear a siren or an air horn close by but do not know exactly where the emergency vehicle is, safely pull over to the right side of the road and stop until you are sure it is not headed toward you. If you are driving near a large commercial vehicle, you should A. Follow the large vehicle closely to reduce wind drag on your vehicle. B. Avoid driving beside it for long stretches of time. C. Drive on its right side when on curves and hills. B. Avoid driving beside it for long stretches of time. Because large commercial vehicles have large blind spots on each side, you should avoid driving beside them for long periods of time. Many crashes are caused by A. Drivers traveling too fast for conditions. B. Drivers consistently checking their mirrors and blind spots. C. Drivers yielding the right of way. D. Drivers maintaining a 4-second following distance. A. Drivers traveling too fast for conditions. Many crashes are caused by drivers who are driving too fast for conditions. Always drive within the legal speed limits and decrease your speed anytime conditions are less than perfect. Hydroplaning is usually caused by A. Excessive stops. B. Sudden stops. C. Sudden turns. D. Excessive speed. D. Excessive speed. Your tires become less effective at clearing water from the road as you increase your speed. If you drive too fast, they may lose their grip entirely, leaving the vehicle sliding on a film of water. This is known as hydroplaning. This sign means A. School ahead. B. School crossing. C. Pedestrian crossing. D. Construction workers on or near the roadway. C. Pedestrian crossing. Warning signs are usually diamond-shaped with black markings on a yellow background. They alert drivers to upcoming hazards. This sign indicates that there may be pedestrians crossing the road ahead.